Yeah, we'll definitely find out. And speaking of Alabama players, Coach Paul brought up another comment. Things are going to open up for Devontae Smith with AJ Brown on the Eagles, and that's kind of where I was going to lead us next, because you're an Eagles fan, as people watching YouTube can see. Kenny's wearing an Eagles shirt for those listening on iTunes. What do you think about what the Eagles did with AJ Brown? Like, for a team that ran nearly like as much as the Eagles did last year, they ran more than any other team in the NFL. Like, usually you don't see a team invest that much into a receiver. But the Eagles, people may forget, but the Eagles passed a lot to open up the year. Like, they were criticized for not running the ball. But I think they realized quickly that they couldn't pass because they only had Devontae Smith. Like, the other receivers were not doing anything. But now they have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So, like, what do you think about the Eagles passing game, like, with these two receivers and also Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I think they definitely wanted to be a passing team last year. There's no doubt. All throughout training camp, the preseason, in the early, they finished. They started the year 2-5, I think it was, largely by throwing the ball a ton. And Nick Sirianni, to his credit, realized right around game 5 or 6, we actually suck at passing. So we actually suck at everything we were trying to do. So let's change that. And it's very unusual for a team to drastically change their offense in the middle of the season. I mean, so I got to give it a lot of credit. It gives me a lot of confidence in Nick Sirianni going forward to be humble enough to realize, okay, what we're doing is not working. And then number 2, to realize, here's what my players are actually good at. Let's do that. And so they were the number 1 rushing team in the NFL, really considering the fact that they didn't run basically much at all for the first 6-7 weeks, to still finish number 1 in attempts and in yards and in overall efficiency in running is really remarkable. So they had a historically good year. I don't think they want to be that team, though. They want to be the team that passes. And that's why they went out and got A.J. Brown. They don't want to be the running team. They've got a lot of great offensive linemen that can pass block and can run block, obviously. They don't want to be that. So I think that's the case. The other, let's be honest, too. I mean, a lot of people don't want to hear this. One of the other reasons they couldn't pass last year is because Jalen Hurts was terribly inconsistent. I mean, that's the bottom line. There are moments where he's great, and then there are moments where he can't throw it into the ocean. I mean, the guy is just, there are moments where he's really bad at making decisions. There are moments where he underthrows players. There's this one play during the Niners game last year where they were at like their own 2-yard line, and there was like a 90-yard pass play, and they got down inside the Niners 10, and they walked away with 0 points. Yep. It was the longest pass play in like the last decade for the Eagles. And it was the longest pass play in the NFL over the last 20 years in which it didn't result in points on that drive. It was remarkable. People often look at that. If you look at that video, he actually underthrows the ball by about 7 yards. If that ball is thrown 7 yards in front of Quez Watkins, it's a touchdown. And like, it's been, people show that play a lot. It's like, oh, see, look, he threw the ball 60 yards down the field accurately. And I'm just like, no, if he threw that ball in front of the receiver, it's a touchdown. But because he underthrew it, they get 0 points out of that drive. And so I think that's like the perfect microcosm of like who Jalen Hurts is. Like, he has moments where he's great. And then, of course, we all know in my opinion, he's the second best running quarterback in the NFL, only behind Lamar Jackson. And the chasm between the two of them is not huge. Jalen Hurts is really good with the legs. And he doesn't turn the ball over. And he's a great player. I mean, in terms of like work ethic, and he's easy to root for because he's a nice guy. Everyone loves him, and he's the first guy in, last guy out. All the proverbial intangibles that you talk about, but all that doesn't matter if you can't throw the ball. And Jalen Hurts struggles to throw the ball often. If he can clean that up, then the Eagles are a legitimate. They're not a Super Bowl contender, but like they can make some real noise in the playoffs. If not, that team is a mediocre team. They're an 8 or 9 win team again. And they'll be drafting around 17 or 18 again next year. That's the reality. Like, they're going to be in that mid. Jalen Hurts to me is like, he's a very different player than a Kirk Cousins, but he's potentially similar to Kirk Cousins, where it's like, looks really good, could be great, but at the end of the day, you're just still winning 8 games every year, and that makes me nervous.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have the Eagles winning the division. I think they're the best team. Before the draft, I had the Eagles and Cowboys just 2 spots apart in my power rankings. And now my power rankings, which actually the updated power rankings are up on the site. They were just posted a couple hours ago. I have the Eagles, I think 14th and the Cowboys 19th now. So I think the Eagles are a decent bit better than the Cowboys. I really love this trade that they made during the draft. I feel like AJ Brown's really going to open things up, and Jalen Hurts' inconsistency is definitely going to be an issue. With more experience, you figure it's going to get better. But having a great talent like AJ Brown, like, really helps quarterback. You saw with Ryan Tannehill. Like, we'll agree. I think we'll agree that Ryan Tannehill is not a good quarterback, but like he looked very good at times because of AJ Brown and like what Brown has been able to do. And now Jalen Hurts has that, as well as Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Like, I feel like there's so much potential for this Eagles passing offense. And, it's not like AJ Brown's going from running team A to running team B. Like, yeah, the Eagles ran heavily last year, but like you said, they really wanted to pass the ball. And so I feel like AJ Brown's upside is higher here in Philadelphia than it was in Tennessee. So I like Brown more this year in fantasy than I did if you were in Tennessee. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I think this is a huge help for AJ Brown. As you just said, like, we know Tennessee wants to be a running team and they don't want to deviate from that. The Eagles were that last year, but they want to deviate from it. They want to throw the ball. I think Jalen Hurts does some things better in the passing game than Ryan Tannehill. And then there are some things in the passing game that Ryan Tannehill does better than Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts is way better with his legs and opens things up. And we saw that several times last year, where because Hurts can buy time in the pocket, it gives opportunity for some guys downfield. And I think AJ Brown's going to benefit from that. I think AJ Brown's a top 10 receiver coming into this year, in my mind. I don't know where he ends up getting drafted if you're in fantasy drafts, but I don't know where you have him. I'm just trying to. I've got a rough sketch of guys that I don't have an exact ranking, but like, I think he's right around, in my mind, the same place where a Deebo Samuel or Mike Evans, maybe a Keenan Allen. There's a handful of guys that are maybe a DJ Moore. There's about 4 or 5 guys that I have kind of like in that like 8 to 12 to 13 range. AJ Brown is in that mix and maybe even has a chance to be ahead of the rest of that bunch. Maybe he's even in kind of the 8 or 9 spot. But I mean, maybe by the end of the summer, I'll have him ranked that high. And surely it won't be any Eagles bias playing into that.
Surely. I want you to guess this. AJ Brown is in my top 10 fantasy receivers. Where is he in the top 10?
I'm going to guess you have him. Maybe you have him even higher than I do. Maybe you have him like at 6.
I have him at 9. So
okay.
Flip that number around. So
right.
Pretty close. I think he's definitely in the top 10 for the reasons you said. I think that he's going to have maybe his best year ever. And like, people might look at like Jalen Hurts and say, not just passing wise, but like, he's going to steal a lot of touchdowns running from AJ Brown, so his numbers are going to go down. But like, people say that might forget that Ryan Tannehill ran in so many touchdowns last year, or at least it felt that way. I can't tell you how many times I played Derrick Henry in DFS, and Ryan Tannehill scrambles in twice. It was just so tilting. It's not like that's going to change. Plus, Derrick Henry stole so many touchdowns as well. It's not like the Eagles don't have that caliber back. But Miles Sanders is very good, but like, he's not Derrick Henry, like ramming the ball into the end zone. So like, that's going to help AJ Brown as well.